I'm Nestle Enriquinho, an aspiring Bachelor of Secondary Education major in English student. Welcome to today's lesson. In this video, we're going to dive into the manner of articulation and explore its different types. Whether you're new to this topic or just reviewing, this lesson will provide you with a clear understanding of the key concept. So grab your notes and let's get started. There are many different manners of articulation for consonant sounds in English. Sometimes, the manner of articulation is also called the quality of consonant. Let's look at them. First of all, we have plosives. Sometimes they are also called stops. So, you will see both of those terms being used. Now, how are they formed? Part of the vocal tract is closed off completely, so there will be full closure and no air can escape. But then, the air is released suddenly with a sharpened burst. And suddenly is really important because it leads to this little explosion of the air. That's where we get the word plosive from. Here are the plosives that we have in English. P as in pay and G. B as in table and B. And you can see here the closure is formed with both my lips, P and B. Then we have T in to and pat, and the in day and mad, K in cat and make, G in go and bad. And another plosive sounds that you might not have heard of before is the glottal stop. This funny looking symbol that we have usually in between vowels. For example, when we say uh-oh, the glottal opens and closes and opens again and forms a glottal stop. But before we move on very quickly, remember phonation. Some of these plosives are voiced and others are unvoiced. So let's move on. The next group, also a very big group, are fricatives. Fricatives are formed very different to plosives. Here, two articulators move close so that the air flows through a small opening. So, there isn't complete closure. It's just that there is a very narrow space, a very small opening. And now what happens is that this causes the air turbulence that we can hear. It's really the friction of the air passing through this little small opening that we can hear when we form fricatives. Here are all the fricatives we have in English. As in fun or half. As in very or have, and think and thought. I know this is a funny symbol for the unvoiced sound. The voiced sound is as in they or breathe. Then we have in see or less, z in zebra or is, and then we have sh in shoe and push, and z in pleasure and Asia. And last but not the least, we have in happy and behind. So we have 9 fricatives in English. This is the biggest group actually of sounds. And in the sound sh, I think it's very noticeable. We have a little closure here, but it's not completely. It's just a small opening near the teeth, Sh. And the air passing through, we can hear the air turbulence. Of course, all of those have the same manner of articulation. But then, our tongue and position or movement of our tongue, of course, helps form the sound as well. That is why, yes, they're all fricatives. But obviously, they do not all sound the same because the place where the small opening occurs is different, and also the tongue position be different. And just like With the plosives, some of these are unvoiced and some of these are voiced. So they differ in quite a lot of other characteristics. Again, I added a little image to help you remember fricatives. So this is just like a cloud blowing out some wind. And I thought maybe this helps you remember. Fricatives have something to do with air turbulence, the little small opening. So let's have a look at the next group. Number 3, those are affricates. Now, those are actually quite easy to remember. I think because they are basically a combination of the first two groups. So it's a combination of applosives followed straight away by a fricative. And that means that the affricate sounds start by fully stopping the air first from the living vocal tract, but then the air is released. And not maybe as suddenly as with a plosive or poplosive, but it's released through a small constricted opening. So there's a difference here. It's not a full open release, it's just a small opening, and again we can hear the air friction. And so we have, for example, ch and ch. And this is now a new sound and classified as one sound, as in ch, child and march. So we have ts and straight away followed by sh, ch, ch, sh. And then we have the voice counterpart d and d together. For example, in j, juice, or orange, j, j. Here we have it at the end, so there are only two affricate sounds in English. Now, we have a fourth group, and those are nasals. Now, nasals makes you think of nose, and that's quite good because the nose or the nasal cavity plays a big role. When we produce nasal sounds here, the sound is blocked through either the lips or the tongue. Somewhere in the vocal tract is blocked from leaving the mouth, and instead the sounds is released through the nasal cavity. Now, the nasal cavity is the big space from our throat up through our nose. And we have three nasals in total. We have and And I've given you a couple of example words, but just before, we have a look at them to demonstrate that the air is released through the nose and not the mouth. So, if I say and I pinch my nose, see what happens. The sound stops because it cannot really escape anymore. Alright? And the same is true for and So the sound is released through your nose. So we have in more or come, for no or sun, and then the in sing and think. So we have this sound always when the spelling is or nk. There are three nasals in English. Next, we have an interesting group. Number 5 is the group of approximants. Now, it's not a huge group, but the sounds that belong to this group still vary a little bit. So how are they formed? Approximants are formed when two articulators come together to form a narrow space in the mouth. And again, the air flows through it. You might think, wait, this is not the same from the fricatives. Why are they a different group? They are different because this little space is not as small as when fricative sounds, so it flows through this narrow space, but it's not close enough and not small enough to make the air friction audible. So there is a difference in size and this small opening that is formed. Now, You could say that four approximants are in between fricatives and vowel sounds. Vowel sounds is really no closure, or the mouth is pretty wide open like e, very wide, and fricatives, sh. There is very small opening, so the approximants are kind in between those two groups in terms opening of the mouth. And here are the four approximants that we have in English. First of all is ya in yes and young, wa in when and between, l in light and milk. The light or milk, yes, there is dark and the light L, but then they don't really cause any difference in meaning. So we just treat it as one phoneme and L, then we have in right and carry. Now, because this group is a bit special and there are subgroups within approximants, I've created this little table for you to help you. Ya and wa both approximants. That's true, but they are also often called glides or semi-vowels. So you will see those terms being used and they also share something in common. If you say ya and wa, just pay attention to your articulators. Ya, there's little movement in your tongue when you form the sound. And the same with wa, there's movement in your lips, also articulators. So because of this movement, both of those are called transitional sounds. And that just means the articulators moving during the sound production. Ya and wooden. Now, let's have a look at the other two. Those are called liquids. Now, is also called a lateral approximants. And in fact, very often you will see the other sounds and also being called approximants with a specific adjective before it. And that usually refers to either the manner of articulation or the place. And that's just distinguish them from one another. So also called a lateral rather, or a lateral approximant. And here, if you just form the sound, you can see the tip of the tongue is touching the alveolar ridge. And the air flows on either sounds of the tongue out of the mouth. And so that is really what we call a lateral. But it's still an approximant because the opening is quite big and we hear a sound, but we don't hear the air friction. And R is sometimes also called root tongue. Now, I've used the symbol here from the Adrian Underhill chart. That one that you can see in the IPA looks a little bit different. It looks like an upside down R. And again, two images to help you remember those four approximate sounds. You remember them maybe in their subgroups. And so, those are the glides or the semi-vowels, ya and wa. And then the liquids. You've got this little image of some liquid, some water. As you can see, there is water here. Okay, and now we come to one more group, number 6, and that's the tap. Tap. Now, again, this is a very specific sound. We call it usually the fluff T. You can see the IPA symbol here. Looks like a bit of a funny art. And this is produced when the tongue just very quickly taps against the alveolar ridge. So, there's only one fluff T, a tap sounds. And so, it's always exactly the same production. It always against the alveolar ridge. In English, we don't have any other tap sound. So, I've given you an example here. Again, you can see the IPA symbol and then we have the word butter. Now, if you have more of a British English pronunciation, you probably just say butter and pronounce a full T sound, which is, of course, plosives to the sounds. However, Americans very often say butter. So it's instead of a full T, they just do a little flat T tap. So it's just butter. Just say it a few times and pay attention to the movement of your tongue, especially the tip of your tongue. Butter. So there's this very quick tap against the alveolar ridge. We also have it in between words. So for example here, a lot of. If I say it fast, a lot of, a lot of. And in fact, here I would say the majority of English speakers will use a flat T. Sounds like this, flat, instead of a full T, plosives, a lot of. Because usually we talk fast, it's much quicker to say this tap instead of a full plosive. And I put a little picture of a tap dancer because hopefully this will help you remember the tap sound. So here's a summary. Again, we have the different manners of articulations. Of all the sounds in English, we have plosives, also called stops. We have fricatives, then those were very two big group, and then we have affricates. And they were a combination of plosives and fricatives. And there were only two. And last but not the least, we have one tap sound, the flat T. And finally, I thought you might find this table really helpful. Here, you have all the consonant sounds of English in a chart showing the place and manner of articulation. So on the left, you can see the manner that we've just went over. Plosives, fricatives, affricates, nasals, laterals, and approximants. And then, of course, you also might want to know, well, where in the mouth are they produced? And that is the place of articulation. And it really literally goes through the mouth, from bilabial, that means really formed with both your lips, to labiodental, interdental, alveolar, postalveolar, palatal, and velar, and glottal. And all of the consonant sounds are given. Now, the wa is given twice. That is because it's really produced. And it is an alveolar sound as well, like the full T. Now, the wa is given twice, and that is because it's really produced. If you can say it wa, it's yes, produced at the front with both of the lips, but the tongue also rises near the velum. And so it is a bilabial velar sound. That is why it's listed twice. And you can see that they are color coded. So I've also given you the phonation. By that, I mean whether the sound is unvoiced or voiced. So voiced means we're using our vocal cords. They're vibrating in the sound production. This gives a lot more volume and resonance to the sound. So the voiced sounds are all red and the unvoiced sounds are in this green teal color. And they are a lot quieter as a result because the vocal cords stay open and not involved to the sound production. So that ends our discussion. Thanks for sticking with me through this lesson. I hope you gain a lot of valuable insight. Don't forget to take some time to practice what we've covered today. If you have any questions, drop them below and I'll be happy to help. Make sure to hit that subscribe button for more lessons and I'll see you in the next one. Keep pushing forward. That's all. Thank you.